transitioning. We talked already a little bit about those people at the latter end of their careers, what they do, and some of them leave. Some people just retire and stop, literally stop, and go and fish or travel or cookery classes or whatever. And then other people, and I think you and I are doing this. I describe what I'm doing as semi-retirement, because part of me is slowing down, but only a part of me. And as we were talking before we went on air, I'm struggling with it. I'm still not quite sure what I want to do, what I should do. I've also got to consider appointing my wife, who's this podcast is my hobby. I don't play golf, so this is my hobby, but it's costing, because I keep buying expensive equipment and paying for Riverside subscriptions. And so my wife is not very happy with me. But hey, what's new? What's new? But how are you dealing with the transition?
Well, I think the interesting thing for those of us that do have a life partner, I think that is one of the big issues of not going to the office every day. I think COVID kind of eased us into that, because all of a sudden my husband Mark did have to suffer me being around 24/7, where prior to COVID, I was probably away from home.
But you're such a shrinking violet. You just quietly got...
Well, no, actually, the difference is I am a total extrovert. He's a total introvert. So the big challenge for us now, still 3 years into me leaving my full-time sort of distraction, as he would call it, is that now I plan way too many things for us to do by his measure. And I think secretly there's a little part of him that would like me to be a little bit more distracted away from planning his life.
All right. Yeah, that I can see that. But again, we were chatting earlier on. I put 3 different elements to it. There's more than 3 elements. I think there's a financial element. I'm kicking myself. I should have. I think I was 12 years at Reuters, and I didn't join the pension scheme for the first 5 years. Anyway, I was stupid, but it's too late now. So I'm not badly off, but I'm not as somebody who's got 25 years at Reuters, Thomson Reuters, whatever. Frankly, are doing very nicely. The final salary schemes are few and far. So having financial security is one thing. One of the reasons I'm doing this is keeping my brain going, staying involved. I love the industry. I love all these things. So intellectual stimulation. And then the third element, which I also consider this to be, is a social dimension. Rightly or wrong, I love having a chat with people. Maybe I love chatting a bit too much, as some people tell me, but I enjoy this social interaction at work. I mean, my wife tells me I have too much of my social life linked with work and not enough in our little village or something. But that's, hey.
Yeah, but look, I think all of those things are true. And I think that the transition, I really want to think of a better word than, I really don't like the word retirement, because it has so many negative connotations to it from, history, when people...
From our parents, grandparents.
Yeah, when they retired and they sat on the porch and then died 2 years later or something like that. I think from my perspective, it is all the things that you said. You need to have a plan for retirement, and you need to be able to afford to do, what you want to do when you retire. And that's different things to different people. I think the big challenge for a lot of people, especially people that have had very visible careers, is the concern about their identity. Because for so many of us, our identity is very associated with what we did. And what our job was. And for me now, I was concierge key on American Airlines. Now I think I'm pushing it to have gold status, and kind of stand there at the airport watching all these concierge key people get on the plane somewhat wistfully, and realizing that I'm basically a nobody. I think that's a big issue for a lot of people. I thought it would be a huge issue for me, and much less of an issue than I thought. I'm fortunate to live between Connecticut and Florida. The community that I live in Florida, I've made some great friends here. I play a lot of golf, play a lot of pickleball, so have met heaps of people. And I was out last night with a couple of people, and we were talking about this topic. And, one of the things that I said was, one of the things I love about living here is most of the people here have been successful in their careers. Nobody asks anybody what they did. They just assume they wouldn't be living here if they didn't have a level of success. What's important and how people judge other people now is based on the most important things in life, which is basically how they show up as human beings, their humanity, their giving back to the community, their integrity, and they tend to judge people more on values. So on that sort of identity issue, I've come to terms with the fact that what I did or what my reputation was doesn't really matter anymore. What matters is how I show up as a human.
And picking up on the identity, I'm doing this podcast to maintain my identity a bit. So that's part of it.
It's also to maintain your connection. The reason listen, I still have so many friends from, one of the great things about working for an organization like Thomson Reuters is anywhere in the world that I want to go, there's somebody that I can connect with that I know. And I love to do that. And whenever I go up to New York, I still see people, I still talk to people, I still get messages from people asking for career advice. And that connection is really important because I think we did work in an industry, and people that are listening to this podcast that are still in the industry, we value the industry that we work in. And my advice to everybody is to continue to maintain those connections. It's an important part of our life and who we are.
And just to finish off on, because we're now towards the end, what advice would you give? There's two groups of people, either people in the same situation as us, in that semi-retirement transition, whatever you want to call it. That's one group. And then there's a group a bit earlier, the people who maybe it's another 10 years, 5 years or something. It's looming. I don't think my daughter who's 27 cares about this at all or even thinks about it. But maybe the group in their 50s, maybe late 40s, whatever. And what are the bits of advice?
So the first piece of advice that I give our kids is your financial plan. Number one.
Yeah.
Max out
Save.
your 401k, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The next piece of advice that I've always given everybody is build your network of connections and be authentic and true to that. Because, when you step into your next phase of your life, which I'm now in, those connections are really gold. Those connections are what open up the opportunities for you. So I think for people that are still working full time and haven't yet got to that point of transition, financial plan, connections, and reputation. They are the three most important pieces of advice. And then there's a whole conversation about how you make the transition, because it's probably one of the most significant points of change in anyone's life. You talk about the big changes in your life, when you get married, when you have children and your life really changes. When you stop working full time, that is a huge change. And it took me a couple of years to work out what I wanted to do. And I'm still working through that, but I feel like I'm in a good place now.
I think my advice, and I suspect you might mirror this, is it isn't binary. It isn't you're working full time and then you're retired. There is an opportunity to do a phased period. I'm doing 50%, or maybe more than 50% because I'm doing it, but I'm doing it in stages.
Yeah.
The other thing I didn't mention, you have to be conscious of health. One of the things, it's a bit morbid, but there's a point in your retirement, semi-retirement, whatever you want to call it, where you're active and you can do stuff. And let's be blunt, let's be honest with ourselves. At some point in the later years, you're less able to do that. Right. Horrible health thing. So anyway, seize the moment, seize the day, be deliberate. That would be my advice on it.